Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at the Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers Game 2 for Wednesday night. It is the only game on our NBA slate, but we have a best bets video that we're bringing you right now, and we have that player props video as well that we bring you each and every weekday. So make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us the rest of these playoffs. Also want you to head to thelines.com. You can check out all of the great written content that we're putting up on the site for these playoffs and more. And you can use the odds finder tool that we have up there. Make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all these books that are giving us bets right now in the NBA this postseason. A lot of that going on right now as Joel Embiid was ruled in right before we started recording, Nate, and we had to scramble a bit to sort of refigure what was happening as the books were putting up all the different lines now. I just use that point also to say it's a kind of a moment in time where there's a lot of difference and disparity between the offerings on these different books as they continue to put them back up after taking them down. So definitely make sure that you're kind of shopping those and making sure you're getting the best stuff that's different between these books. I will say also talking about last night real quick on the 2nd of May as we looked at that the Golden State Game 1 and the Heat and Knicks Game 2. We were pretty good last night, Nate. You got a nice little teaser there to make sure that you covered the Miami spread at plus 11 with an over 203. I don't know if you actually needed it, but either way, it was a good bet at even money. The Knicks and the Heat to go under did not cash. It was close, but then the Heat, I guess, like I said, they're the 2006 Suns, are the bench players right now for that team as they don't miss. They rebound. They're incredible. You did not get correct the under for that Golden State and Lakers game, but you did tease it a bit as well, which made sure you got under on the total there because you got a little bit higher than the 228.5 that it originally was at. And just finishing these off with the Lakers money line that I was all over, as well as that the AD 25 plus and the money line parlay there. I also wanted to make sure you guys know I'm still alive with my plus 550 bet for Golden State to lose Game 1 but to win the series. That's still very much alive as well. So Nate, before you jump into your best bet, any thoughts on last night real quick?
Yeah, I didn't put the teaser in there as a bet, but I personally bet it because I'm like 228, and also like live bet the shit out of that under when it was 240 at halftime. I was like, this is just not going to sustain by any means. So I mean, I think that's something we can look at. We're going to put up the Game 2 video pretty soon, and just the Lakers kind of fading in the second half offensively is what I'm looking at here. But yeah, let's talk about Celtics Game 2 and the Celtics gut check time for sure. You can't put this all on Joe Mazzulla. It's, last year the Celtics did the same befuddling stuff where, like Josh said, they dribble into traffic with absolutely no plan. They don't know how to play off each other, and the textbook example of that being that they had a shot clock violation that was turned into a basket the other way because they weren't spaced properly and nobody knew who was going to shoot. And in any case, I expect them to bounce back on offense, and I expect them to score 113, which is actually juiced for you because Joel Embiid is in. Their totals dropped 2 points because, like we talked about before Game 1, the Sixers play faster without Embiid, and so you can expect more points, and the opposition obviously is going to have a better path to the rim without Embiid. But I'm willing to just go contrary to all that and say, you know what? I mean, first of all, Game 1 was still an 89 pace. You're not really going to go any slower than that, even with Embiid in there. And first, like my biggest strategy point here is the Celtics are going to push and force Embiid into action, force him to guard pick and roll because they got to test that knee and not only make him tired in this game, but try to wear him down for the rest of the series and make him not available going forward. So I think they will be playing their space and pace game, which they have all season at home, which they were pretty successful at in Game 1 and, kind of lit it up for a few quarters before fading away because they just had these weird not defined roles. But I think first team ever to shoot 58% or better and commit 10 fewer fouls and lose the game in the playoffs. But look, in the playoffs right now, their last 6, they're averaging 122. Granted, a lot of that's against the Hawks. Granted, the Sixers and Celtics have played lower scoring slugfests because Embiid has dominated the pace and the pace of play. But I mean, he's not 100%. First of all, like he was doubtful for this game until he got the adrenaline rush of being named MVP, I guess. And then he's like, all right, I'm going for it. I'm going to play. So, who knows what we're going to get from him. Josh did not quite have the confidence to pull the trigger on over 25 points, which is very low for Embiid. And, he kind of sputtered through his last two in that series with the Nets, and it hurt the Sixers offense. 23 turnovers, giving the Nets the highest percentage of points off turnovers. Nets also 82% of their three-pointers were assisted as they put Embiid in action, moved the ball around, and got looks. And that's exactly the Celtics recipe for wins. It's something that they can do at home. I mean, they could really get it going here because it is such a bounce back spot for them, and they do have the home crowd. So I would consider like the plus 150 you get for them to score 116 or 118 and going up even. I do think they're going to get points up here, and I do think it's going to be faster paced than we expect usually with Embiid.
But you think it's going to be a blowout then?
I mean that's hard to predict because I don't know if Joel Embiid's going to limp around or if James Harden had a fluke or if he had he's actually confident and he actually is able to do this against the Celtics again. I think it's really hard to predict the Sixers offense going forward. Yeah. But that's why I'm concentrating on the Celtics offense.
Yeah, I know. And I agree with you entirely on that. And to be honest, like, I don't know. The thing is, I kind of prefer an under just looking at the game. So with that in mind, if it's going to be, if the Celtics are going to go over, but this game's going to go under 218, then we're not necessarily looking at much wiggle room there for outside of a blowout, right? For Boston in this one. And I think, we're going to see what we get from Embiid pretty quickly. And so I might really kind of concentrate on sort of looking at an under, but seeing how both of these teams come out. If Boston is just going to push, and make this pace faster than 89. I mean, in the first quarter of that game, it was at like a 97 or so, but it was the fastest, quarter of, excuse me, it was a bit slower, but the offensive ratings were insane. And Philly's tactic was to actually speed it up a bit the rest of the game and try to, continue to keep Boston on its toes, which kind of worked for them with their guard heavy rotation and a bunch of George Niang in there at times as well. So it's interesting because like, what you were saying about the Celtics rather putting the Sixers and pick and roll on defense. They did that to B-ball Paul as well. Malcolm Brogdon went off for 20 points. 10 of those were while Paul Reed was guarding him. And the only reason Paul Reed was guarding him was because he got switched on a screen on a pick and roll. And that's going to continue to be their bread and butter. They only made 10 threes in that game, but they were pounding the paint, right? They were the 62 points in the paint. If you look at their shot chart, they had like 8 mid-range shots and then all of their shots at the rim or the 26 threes that they took, right? And 26 threes is low for the Boston Celtics, by the way, who have been known to shoot damn near 50 at times in the season. I mean, that's an outlier, but definitely high 30s and 40s, low 40s. So I think they're going to continue. They're going to go back to that, right? You're going to see a lot more of them, not necessarily trying to crash the paint, which might be good for them because they were so thirsty to get to the rim in that last game in game one without anybody like Embiid in the paint that sometimes it was like, yo, this is reckless. Like I understand the desire to get to the rim, but like, let's have a plan once we get there because now you've got 3 guys around you. And that was it. I don't know, an in-game adjustment that Doc Rivers made. Can I say that? I think he might have actually had a really solid in-game adjustment to be like, hey, let them get right inside the 3-point line and then just harass them with all of you. And we're not really worried about that because Al Horford's out on the 3-point line for the most part at that point. And Rob Williams didn't really get much burn in that game because they wanted to match up small and they did a great job of that. So, in this one to finally get to the pick that I'm coming with, I know you and I had talked about maybe, going under in the game. I think I'm just going to stick and Philly to cover, but I don't know what I'm getting from Embiid. And so I'm going to get, I'm going to go under to start in this game, but I'm also going to be watching the live betting aspect of this pretty heavily in the first quarter. If it's going to be a normal style, Boston 76ers game with Joel Embiid in there, then I'm going to be expecting a lot of Rob Williams and a lot of Al Horford and a lot of slowing things down on both ends of the floor, obviously as well for Philly, who plays, 3 possessions per 100 slower when Joel Embiid is on the floor. So I do like the under at first. I'm going to see what happens. If it's like they're coming out running and the Celtics are trying to get Embiid off the court, and maybe they eventually do get him off the court, I'm going to find the right time to potentially get an over if this thing gets pretty low and Embiid can't play very much. And then we're going to go back to the Maxey Harden style of offense that this 76ers team is playing. As a result, Boston's going to match up with that, going smaller as well. And we'll see the ability for these teams to get off a bunch of shots and for the Celtics to really get theirs around the rim again.
Yeah, no, I think everything in terms of the history indicates under if Joel Embiid is going to play the entire game. So I'm with you on that. I understand that both bets probably aren't going to cash if you're following both of us here with the Celtics over and the game total under. But yeah, I think you're totally right to say watch the first quarter before you decide how you're going to attack the Sixers. I'm saying pregame, if I'm betting on one thing, it's the Celtics offense to continue having success against Harden and Maxey on the defensive end with those guards. And so that's why I'm going with this parlay here with the Celtics money line, with Jalen to get 25, Brogdon to get 15, and Tatum to get 25. Tatum, of course, being the safest bet to do so. He's minus 120 to score 30. Jalen is minus 120 to score 25. And Brogdon is, even money to score 15 now. But in player props, I'm going to continue to hit that because he is the main scorer off the bench against a Sixers bench that is really, really poor defensively. And he will be able to attack the rim because Embiid's probably not going to be playing against that bench unit. And I don't think Embiid is going to be able to guard much down low. All three of these guys should be attacking, which is what Josh is saying. Maybe they do a little bit less of that. All three of them can hit threes as well. But Jalen particularly had a ton of success attacking the paint. Went 8 for 10 early, had 19 points in the first half in that last game, and then just decided to stop attacking, including down the stretch where he had the ability to push in the fast break and probably put the Celtics up for good. And for some reason, he's always aggressive in that situation, but he pulled it out. I think we will see him come out very aggressive and get his points early. Look, the Sixers, even with Embiid out there for some of these playoffs, are second to worst in terms of field goal percentage allowed within 9 feet. Even 1 to 5 feet, not protecting the rim all season. It's been Embiid and nobody else, in terms of being a shot blocking presence, and then Embiid just getting sucked away. And that's why they're not a great rebounding team and not the best paint protecting team either. And Brogdon, 15 points. If you are worried about that, you can go down to 10 points. I guess I didn't read the odds. It's juicy plus 500 for this all to happen with the C's to win. But if you go Brogdon down 10 points, you can cut that in half. Brogdon to get 10 is certainly likely here. I'm just trusting Jalen to get 25, which is a fluctuation that you see sometimes and fall below that number. I think he'll get there in this one. And that goes in line with me thinking the Celtics will score at least 114.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. And Brogdon was out there, I think, when he was out there, he played a good amount of minutes, obviously, to get those 20 points. And I think you continue to have him on the floor in the last 3 games. He's been up around 35 minutes for them, including the last 2 of that last series. And I think he's proven how important he is to the flow of the offense as well. And for his ability to break things down as an intelligent player who doesn't, he's one of the few who doesn't just run into traffic. Derek White's good at it. He's one of those guys who sort of gets a running start while the pass is on the way to him and then cuts to the rim effectively. And Derek White, I have no problem with. I'm kind of just talking about the Jalen, Jason, Marcus Smart trio of blindly running into the paint. Brogdon brings you, dare I say, the adult in the room, and is a good bet to be on the floor in key minutes for this team. And if this game does get a little bit out of hand in Boston's favor, I still think you want him out there to sort of control the tempo and be somebody that you trust with the final team minutes, if you will. So I like the whole bet. And if you want to go down to Brogdon 10 points, that's fine. I think the Jalen Jason combo to get 25 each is a pretty solid play there as well. So I'm going to finish things off talking about Mr. Tatum as a part of my last pick here. Jason Tatum double with the Boston money line, one of our favorite player performance doubles there on FanDuel, plus 124. I had talked about the possibility of why not just put a tenth of a unit on Jason Tatum to get a triple double at 40-1. But that was also without Embiid in there, and that just changes things in such a way that I don't even really want to talk about that. I will talk about him just getting double doubles throughout the playoffs and even rebounding well against this Boston team for good reason. And by Boston team, I mean Philly team, because he's on Boston. But the reason I think it's so good, even though he does so well, even though Philly is probably the best rebounding team in the league this year, fluctuated between like first and third best in the league. Obviously, Joel is a huge part of that. And in the playoffs, their defensive rebound percentage is 10% worse with Joel off the floor. So I got that stat before I knew Embiid was playing, obviously. It still kind of holds true from the standpoint of like, how much is he going to be on the floor? Like if he plays 30 minutes, then that's still like 12 minutes of playing time that Jason Tatum will be on the floor without Joel Embiid in there. Even with Joel Embiid in there, the logic that I was using to get to this pick before Embiid was ruled in is still holds water, because it's just replace Embiid in there for Paul Reed, and Paul Reed was sort of, I mean, he's not a Joel Embiid replacement by any means, adequately speaking, but I mean, he still had a double last game, 13 boards, and he's a big body that like Al Horford had to keep out of the lane, and that's the strategy with Joel Embiid is Al Horford, keep him out of the lane as best as you can, and obviously there's some help in there with other guys chipping in on the defensive rebound edge there for Boston. But that's going to be the same concept as Al clear it out, and Jason Tatum, you're the next tallest guy on our team at this point. And actually, usually he's like 6'10". So, outside of like Rob Will, like he's it. And that's why he's had a double-double in 5 of these 7 playoff games. Even the game where Rob Will played 29 minutes against the Hawks, Tatum still had 10 plus boards in that game. So, even if we see more Rob Will and we see more Joel, like it still has meant that hasn't led to Tatum going under on his rebounds. He's averaging 11 boards in his last 8 games that the Sixers have Embiid in the lineup against the 76ers. So I feel pretty good about that. Like 9 defensive rebounds last game versus Horford's 3 when Horford played like 34 minutes, 33 minutes. Obviously, like Horford's doing something else besides grabbing those boards, and I think that's still going to be the case for him tonight. So I can't see the C's going back to Philly down 0-2, man. Like they're gonna have to claw and scratch the way they do and the way they have the last couple postseasons. So I think they're gonna pull this one out with the money line, and then Tatum to get the 10 boards on top of all his points should feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Tatum rebounding when Horford's out there, because Horford is not looking to secure the rebound himself necessarily. Right. Like you're saying, he is a box out presence who lets him go get it and then lets the Celtics initiate their offense. And I think that's what they'll be looking for, preferably. I mean, it is good that you mentioned when Rob Will played nearly 30 minutes that he still had a double-double, because I would see Rob Will being a much better presence, just taking the rebounds away from Tatum. But yeah, he rebounds a lot against the Sixers. I believe he had like a 16 or 18 board game in the regular season once when these teams played gross offense. And so if you're looking at the under, this is probably the better way to game it with the money line. But if you are thinking more points, then maybe you want that plus 500 parlay I threw out there.
Yeah, and we've got our player props video up as well that have some stuff in there. If you're looking, like Nate's saying, for a way to juke that money line for the Celtics and take some props for some of these guys like Al Horford threes and things of that nature, like there's some stuff in there that you can find to go along with the Celtics to win if you're following us on that one. So that's all the time we have for you in the Best Bets video, though. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out our player props video that we have up as well. Until we see you next, happy betting.